Barron Trump had visited many places with his family, grand events, political gatherings, and high-profile meetings. But today was different. Today, he was here not as the son of a former president, but simply as a young man who wanted to make a difference. Walking through the children's ward, he carried no cameras, no reporters following his every move. This wasn't about publicity, it was about the kids, the brave little fighters who spent more days in hospital beds than on playgrounds. A nurse guided him through the hallway, speaking in a soft voice. Most of the children here have been in and out of treatment for months, some for years. It means the world to them when someone takes the time to visit. Barron nodded, his tall frame slightly hunched as he listened carefully. He had always been somewhat reserved, but something about this place, about these kids, made him want to open up. He stepped into the first room, where a little girl with bright blue eyes and a frail frame lay in bed, clutching a stuffed animal. Her name was Lily. She looked up at him, her eyes widening in surprise. "You're really tall," she said matter-of-factly. Barron chuckled. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Lily smiled, but Barron noticed the IV in her arm, the exhaustion in her small features. He sat beside her, careful not to disturb the tubes and wires around her. "How are you feeling today?" She shrugged. "A little tired, but I got a new book to read." She held up a well-worn copy of Alice in Wonderland. "I love stories." "That's a great one," Barron said. "Do you like fairy tales?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "They make me forget about the hospital for a little while." Barron thought for a moment. Then, with a small smile, he leaned in and said, "How about this? You tell me your favorite part, and I'll tell you a brand new fairy tale, one that no one else has ever heard." Lily's eyes lit up. "Really? Really?" she giggled. "Okay, my favorite part is when Alice meets the Mad Hatter. He's funny." Barron grinned. "All right then, let's see. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Lily, and she was even braver than Alice." Lily gasped. "Me?" "Of course," Barron said. "And she went on an adventure even bigger than Wonderland." And as he began to weave a story just for her, something changed in the room. The hospital walls seemed to fade away, replaced by the magic of imagination. For the first time in a long time, Lily wasn't just a patient. She was the hero of her own story. Lily listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder, as Barron continued his story. He spoke softly, painting a world where she was the brave adventurer, a girl who traveled through enchanted forests, met talking animals, and outwitted a mischievous wizard. "You were lost in the kingdom of Everbright," Barron said, leaning forward as if revealing a great secret. "But instead of being scared, you used your kindness to make friends along the way. Even the grumpy old dragon ended up liking you." Lily giggled. "A dragon? Was he scary?" "At first," Barron admitted. "But you figured out that he wasn't really mean, just lonely. So you told him jokes until he laughed so hard he forgot to breathe fire." Lily clapped her hands together, completely lost in the tale. For a few minutes, she wasn't in a hospital bed. She was on an adventure, a hero in a world that was hers alone. A nurse peeked in, smiling as she saw Lily's excitement. "She hasn't laughed this much in weeks," she whispered to another staff member outside the door. Barron glanced at Lily's bedside table, where a collection of books sat stacked neatly. "Do you like to write your own stories?" he asked. Lily's face lit up. "I do, but sometimes I get tired too fast and I can't finish them." Barron nodded thoughtfully. "What if we do it together?" She blinked. "Together?" "Yeah," he said. "You come up with the ideas, and I'll write them down for you. That way, your adventures never have to stop." Lily's mouth fell open in pure delight. "Really? You'd help me write my own book?" "Absolutely," Barron said. "Every great storyteller needs a good partner." Lily reached over and grabbed a notebook from her nightstand, flipping it open to a fresh page. She picked up a marker but hesitated. What should we call our story? Barron thought for a moment. Then he smiled. How about The Girl Who Tamed a Dragon? Lily beamed. I love it. And just like that, they began. Lily dictated her ideas in excited bursts, describing a magical castle, a secret map, and a dragon who needed a friend. Barron carefully wrote down every word, making sure her imagination was captured just the way she wanted. For the first time in a long time, Lily wasn't thinking about her illness or the treatments that drained her energy. She was just a kid, creating something wonderful with a friend who truly listened. As they worked, more children from nearby rooms peeked in, drawn by Lily's laughter. Some sat on the floor, listening to the story unfold. Others whispered their own ideas, and Barron welcomed them all, weaving their suggestions into the tale. By the time a nurse gently reminded Lily it was time to rest, she had the biggest smile on her face. Will you come back? She asked, holding the notebook close to her chest. Barron nodded without hesitation. Of course. We have a book to finish. And with that promise, he knew he had done something far more important than just a visit. He had given her something to hold on to, something that made her feel strong. The next day, Barron returned to the hospital, carrying a small bag. He had thought about Lily all night, about the way her eyes lit up when they built her story together. He knew he couldn't change her condition, but he could make sure she never felt alone in it. As he stepped into her room, Lily gasped, her face lighting up with excitement. You came back. I told you I would, Barron said with a grin, and I brought something for you. He pulled out a leather-bound journal, its cover embossed with golden stars. This is for your stories, he said, handing it to her. Every great author needs a special book to write in. Lily traced the cover with her fingertips, as if it were something magical. It's beautiful, she whispered. I've never had anything like this. Barron sat beside her, pulling out a pen. So, where did we leave off? Lily giggled. The dragon was about to tell me his biggest secret. Right, Barron said, flipping open the journal. Let's make it a good one. For the next hour, they crafted the next part of Lily's adventure. More children gathered in the room, listening as the tale unfolded. Even some of the nurses paused in the doorway, smiling as they watched Barron carefully write down every word Lily imagined. It wasn't just a story. It was an escape. A world where she had power, where she wasn't sick or tired, but strong and fearless. At one point, a boy named Max, who had been too shy to speak the day before, stepped forward. Can I help too? He asked hesitantly. Lily grinned. Of course. We can all be in the story. Barron nodded. That's a great idea. Every hero needs a team. One by one, the children added their own pieces. An enchanted sword, a hidden village, a talking cat who gave riddles. Barron included them all, weaving their ideas into the adventure. By the time visiting hours ended, the journal was already filling up with their shared creation. Lily clutched it to her chest, her smile wider than ever. This is the best thing ever, she said softly. Barron met her eyes and saw something that stayed with him. Hope. She wasn't just writing a story. She was dreaming beyond the walls of her hospital room. As he stood to leave, she grabbed his hand. Barron? Yeah. Thank you for making me feel like I can do anything. His throat tightened, and for a moment he didn't know what to say. Finally, he gave her a small, genuine smile. That's because you can. And as he walked down the hospital hallway, he realized something. This wasn't just a visit anymore. He had become part of something much bigger. Over the next few weeks, Barron continued visiting Lily and the other children at the hospital. What had started as a simple story had grown into something much bigger, a shared adventure that belonged to all of them. Each time he arrived, Lily's journal was already open, waiting for the next chapter. The other kids would gather around, eager to see what would happen next in their magical world. Even the doctors and nurses began to notice the difference. The children, who once spent their days staring at the ceiling or dreading their treatments now, had something to look forward to. One afternoon, when Barron walked into Lily's room, he noticed she looked more tired than usual. Her usual spark was dimmer, and her small hands trembled as she clutched the journal. "Hey, Lily," he said, sitting beside her. "Rough day?" She gave him a small nod. "Yeah, but I don't want to stop our story." Barron glanced at the IV in her arm, the beeping machine surrounding her. He knew she was struggling, but her determination was stronger than anything else. "Then we won't stop," he said gently. "But today I'll do the writing. You just tell me what happens next." Lily's face brightened. "Really?" "Really," Barron said, flipping open the journal. "So, our heroes were about to face the great shadow beast. What happens now?" Lily's voice was weaker than usual, but her imagination remained just as strong. She described how the dragon, her dragon, found the courage to stand up to the darkness, how the enchanted sword, once dull and ordinary, began to glow with the light of friendship, how the heroes, even when they were scared, never gave up. Barron wrote down every word, his handwriting careful and precise, but as he did, something struck him. Lily wasn't just telling a story, she was telling her story, the fight, the fear, the moments of doubt, but also the courage, the belief that no matter how dark things seemed, there was always a way forward. When they finished the chapter, Lily gave a tired but content sigh. "I think that was the best one yet." Barron smiled. "I think so too." A nurse stepped in, giving Barron a grateful nod. "She's had a long day, she should get some rest." Lily looked up at him, her eyelids heavy. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Barron reached for her hand and gave it a light squeeze. "Of course. We still have an ending to write." As he left the hospital that day, something felt different. This wasn't just a kind visit anymore. It wasn't just a story. It was a bond, one that meant just as much to him as it did to Lily. And no matter what, he wasn't going to let her down. A week later, Barron returned to the hospital, clutching something special in his hands. Over the past few nights, he had spent hours going through Lily's journal, carefully transcribing every word into something more than just handwritten pages. When he entered her room, he saw her sitting up, her energy lower than before, but her smile still warm. The other children were gathered too, waiting as they always did for the next part of the story. But today was different. Barron pulled a hardcover book from his bag and placed it gently in Lily's lap. She blinked in confusion, then gasped as she looked down at it. The title, embossed in gold, read, "The Girl Who Tamed a Dragon." She traced the cover with her fingers, her mouth slightly open. "Is this our story?" Barron nodded. "I had it printed into a real book. Every word is exactly how you told it." Lily opened it slowly, flipping through the pages, her name listed as the author. The other children huddled around, excitement filling the room. "You made my book real," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Barron gave her a small smile. "No, you made it real. I just helped a little." Lily held the book close to her chest, as if afraid it might disappear. "This is the best thing anyone has ever done for me." Barron felt a lump in his throat, but he kept his voice steady. "You're a real author now, Lily, and your story will live forever." The nurses wiped their eyes as they watched the moment unfold. Even some of the doctors, who had grown used to seeing hardship every day, stood quietly in the background, moved by what they were witnessing. One of the younger children tugged at Barron's sleeve. "Can we read it together?" Lily's eyes shone with excitement. "Yes. Barron, will you read the first page?" He smiled, took the book from her hands, and began. "Once upon a time, in a land far beyond the stars, there was a girl named Lily. She was small, but her heart was mighty, and one day she met a dragon. As his voice filled the room, laughter and wonder took the place of beeping machines and whispered worries. The children leaned in, completely captivated. For that moment, there was no sickness, no pain, only a story, a dream, and the magic of a young girl who refused to stop imagining. By the time Barron closed the book, Lily's eyes were heavy with sleep. She held the book tightly, as if it were a treasure. Barron brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Rest now, okay?" she murmured softly, barely awake. "Thank you, Barron, for making me a hero." He swallowed hard, blinking back the emotion rising in his chest. "You already were?" he whispered. And as he left the hospital that night, he knew this wasn't just about a visit anymore. It was about friendship, about hope, and about proving that even in the hardest times, kindness could turn a simple story into something truly unforgettable.